Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me again this evening. Tonight we are doing something a bit different. We are going back to what I started streaming right at the very beginning. We are going to be doing some PHP Online. If you don't know what PHP Online is, it's a platform I came up with which is aimed at kind of knowledge sharing for the PHP community. So that's my focus. Obviously, as you can see, it's going to be built with Laravel. I've started it a few times. Stop, start, and I'm just going to start again because each time I kind of change my mind partway through. So I'm just going to start again and go for some low-hanging fruit just to get it online. Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in. Is that a question, Adrian? Soup. So, building the community site PHP Online, a place for PHP developers to share knowledge and find knowledge. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to build a way to import RSS feeds. And doing that, what we'll do is we'll just kind of build a way so that we can crawl on a weekly basis to get users' feeds updated a little bit like maybe not weekly, maybe daily, who knows. Get their RSS feed and just kind of pull it all in so you can index it, share it, stick it up on something like Algolia or Maily Search. So the content that you write in your personal site, you can pull into the community site, and it's great. Yeah, every side project ends like this. I've had the domain name for like 2 years. I started talking from the other room. Perfect. Right, let's get started. I've not done anything, so we're going to go. Laravel new PHP Online. I don't want anything. I don't want Jetstream. I'm going to do Breeze. Yeah, I don't want anything too crazy. I'm not going to go for dev because I want to use like Livewire and a few other things. Hey, welcome from Ethiopia. I'm glad you like the content. Right, application is ready. Let's build something. Let's. Right, so what I need to do is I need to go open new project from existing files. And what we're going to do is we are going to go to here and we're going to go down to PHP Online and finish. Let's do this in a new window. So here is our Laravel project. And let me go back to Ecamm. There we go. Make sure I can see people. Hey, Matteo. Or Matthew from Sheffield. Inside joke, people. Sorry. Right. Okay, so we've got env. We've got everything. We haven't got Docker installed yet. So we're going to go ahead and do that. What I will do, from my last stream, I've got Release Manager here. And what we're going to do, I'm just going to close all of these and we're just going to copy it across. So the way that I'm eventually going to release this as a package because I do it on every project and it's an absolute pain. Yeah, probably should do that, Ollie, to be honest. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab the makefile, Docker Compose and Docker. I'm going to copy that. Come over to here and just paste all of that in. It's going to be completely wrong to start with. I've used inertia with React, but for this I won't be doing that now. This is going to be most likely Livewire, I'm thinking. So instead of Release Manager, we're going to have PHP Online. Hello from Bulgaria. Welcome. There we go. Sheffield, the land of cool developers. Right, so let's set, this is going to be a Docker container called MySQL. We're just going to set super password. We're going to go, it's going to be a Redis host. And we're not going to send any emails right now, so I'm just going to leave that as mailhog. So what I need to do in my Docker Compose, we've got project name there, and I should be able to replace all of these with project name because it's already been pulled in. So then we can go down to release manager there as well. And what we also want to do is that network. I haven't figured out how to change the network yet, so I have to play around with that. And hello from the lounge below me. Hey wife. The wife is currently downstairs, probably feeding the baby still. Hey Mike, how you doing, buddy? And then we're going to replace this one as well, PHPOnline. Eventually I'd like to kind of find a way to automate a lot of this, which is why I want to put it into a package, because, you know, it'd be nice, like Laravel Sail does, it'd be nice if I could do something. Right, I don't need Selenium. I don't need Chrome. Release manager, that is now PHPOnline. This is PHPOnline, and Redis is also PHPOnline. Right, all of that is looking fine so far. Make sure I haven't missed anything. So far, so good. Yep, our Docker Compose is looking good. Our make file now can go, we can swap that for PHPOnline. Place that one, place that one, place that one. There's probably a quicker way to do this. I don't do any of the keyboard shortcuts, to be honest, so I probably should spend some time figuring out the keyboard shortcuts on PHP Storm. To be honest, Amy, I think most people would prefer you to me. People tune in just to listen, but they're like, oh, not Steve again. Not that damn Steve. Is it in here? No. It is conf.d site conf and release manager here. Is PHPOnline. So now what I need to do is cd docker nginx ssl, and then we're going to here we go. As you can see, I've done a few in the past. PHPOnline and PHPOnline. Cool. So I can get rid of that cert. What I need to do for this is simply, this is a new cert up here, so I need to delete the old cert, do that refactor, there's probably a quicker way to do that as well. App cert, and then obviously app key. That is that, which means I can come here and I can say excellent. I did actually try that. I do a lot of different things, Richard, so being able to control the PHP version, Redis, what extra bits per application just makes my life so much easier. That's the main reason. Right, so that's all that. So, moment of truth. Let's just Docker Compose build. That should all be set. Cool. Cool. So let's. Ooh, wow. Okay. So apparently my Docker Compose that did not work. So I've got project name there. So it's complaining about this. Okay, so I'm just going to have to replace it with a manual one until I get round to doing it. That I'll also replace. I'm just going to manually do all of this for now. I'll come back round to sorting it out properly once I finish the package. I think it's fine. PHPOnline, 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 PHPOnline. Lots going on. Actually, wait a minute. That is good enough for me. So the reason that didn't work is because I wasn't in the wrong directory. So now we should be good. Yeah, I've used PHP Monitor locally, but Docker just saves so much time. You can be really specific, and you can just get a lot done with Docker, and it's not too heavy. That's the main thing. Right, so now if I go to my browser, phponline.localhost, I've got a Laravel application which is served over SSL. Connection is secure. We've got a certificate that is valid. We are good. We can start. So, where do we go from here? So, most of this is going to be background work, so the front end is going to come later. But one thing I know I'm going to need is Laravel Breeze. That's one thing I just know I need. So let's just go get that set up. As we sort our windows. So release manager we don't actually need anymore because we stole the Docker stuff from there. So here's, yeah, Vagrant. Vagrant's okay, but it's a bit kind of, it feels heavy. That's the main problem I've found. It feels heavy in comparison, and you know, battery life isn't quite as good as what you'd wish. Hey Craig! So, we've got Breeze installed. Then what we need to do is Composer require pest with all dependencies. Composer require pest plugin Laravel. Composer require IDE helper. Composer require Larastan. Ooh. Ooh. Okay, so we might have to go for version 1 of Larastan. While that loads, we will go get the config Larastan, and we can go add that in. Because what I like to do is I just like to make sure I get all of the setup done, all of the kind of quality checks that I know I'm going to want to do. So I can now come here, I can say create a new file called phpstan.neon, drop this in. Going to include the extension, parameters, remove that, and we are going to ramp this up straight to level 9. So now we can close that. We're here and we can just say make analyze. We're going to do some static analysis, and we've got a few that need fixing. So we've got a login request, string to lower, verify email controller, a few things that are kind of out of our control right now. Let's see if we lower that, if it gets rid of a lot of those, and we can just come back to those a little bit later. No, all of that auth stuff is just getting in the way. So let's start there. So new password controller, validate on a separate line has no effect. New password controller. So let's go fix this up. So HTTP controllers, auth, new password controller, line 36. Okay, so let's just so what is it complaining about exactly? Request validate on a separate line. See, we don't have that. Request validate. That's just okay. What we're going to do is we're just going to add this to the ignore, and we're going to come back to it. We're going to take it back to how it was and exclude paths. I'm going to add that one. Yeah, because I'm running it inside a Docker container, so the make file allows me to go straight into it. So we're just gonna do that for all of these Breeze files. It's just, you know. Let's rerun that and make sure that we've got all of them. Registered user controller as well, apparently. Forgot the app. So then on that root service provider, what we need to do is just come down to here, and we will tidy this up, but what we have to do here is just say PHP stand ignore next line. Let's add some return types in here. We're going to drop the namespace because we don't like that in there. And we're just going to drop that and declare some strict types. What I will also do quickly is open release manager and grab these stubs. Some pre-done stubs for me. So now we have got stubs, we've got static analysis in. If we run make analyze now, no error to ignore for port online 49. Okay, so let's go have a look. Providers, root service provider. Okay, so if I do that, what happens? PHP stand.neon. Now we should get an error. Root service provider. Drop that in there. Then we've got verify email controller, which we must have missed. We've got verification prompt controller. All of these are things that I will come back to once I get round to that part of the functionality. But to start with, it's just CC Mateo. It's going to get in the way of me trying to write my own code right now. And the login request will also just tell it to ignore for now. So for all of these, we just need to go app slash reanalyze, and now we're good. Now we've got a slate where we can start. So we know this project's going to get big over time. Yeah, I really need my own skeleton repo really badly. It takes me, what, that was 20 minutes to get set up. So first things first. Inside, we're going to have domains, which is source domains. We're going to have infrastructure within source. There we go. So I can go and create a new directory for source. Create directory. Create directory. Tell it to ignore that whole auth directory. It may as well at that point, right? Let's have a look. Exclude paths. Request. Let's see what that does. That's good. That keeps it simpler. Cheers for that idea, Ollie. Let's just quickly run a composer update so that we can load in these new parts over here. And we are looking good. So we are good to go. So we want to import RSS feed. So we're going to have two main aspects here. We're going to have a feed and we're going to have feed items. So first thing we need to think about doing is let's create a model. So PHP artisan, make a model for feed. We want a migration, factory, and that's it for now. We don't want a seeder or anything else just yet. Let's go down to this migration. So if we go down to Docker, database migrations, feed table, this is all set up to use my stub. So the feed, we're going to have a table UUID, UID, unique. What we do is we will have soft deletes available. So hey Samuel, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my site, find my RSS feed and have a look at that one. Open link in a new tab. So we're going to have like a feed which is going to have a title, a link, description, language, copyright, and like a last build date. So let's think about adding those sorts of things. Move some windows around. So we know we're going to want a string for the title. We can add a comment and we can say feed title, e.g. something like that. I'm not going to bother adding comments actually. I think it's a little bit obvious on this one. What I do want to do though is in my composer JSON file is just for now I'm going to force 8.1. So we have a title. We are going to have a link. So table string. We have a link. A description, which I don't think is meant to be that long, but it probably might be longer than a string. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a text. I'm going to add description. I don't think everybody adds it, so I will make it nullable. We are going to have a table string language. Table string copyright, which could not be passed through. That's probably it. That's all I really want. So, with the main aspects, got feed. Then we will have a table boolean, and this will be approved. We're going to default this to false, because what we want to control the feeds that are coming in. That's the main thing. We want to control what feeds are coming in, and just really understand, okay, so go through some sort of process of, we're going to approve this feed. Now we can start pulling things, so we're not just like anybody post anything anywhere all the time. So we can really control the spam level a little bit better. So what we need to do is, down in our factory, we're going to have a feed factory here. So for our title, we will need a faker. Probably want a sentence. Let's say we're going to put for and true. Then we're going to have a link. This faker, some sort of URL. Then we will have a description, and we'll keep this pretty simple. We'll put a going to just put one paragraph as text. Then language, this faker, language code, and then copyright is going to be this faker sentence with 4 words again, something really simple. What we did forget, obviously, is any sort of relation. So we're going to have a foreign ID of user ID. It's going to be indexed and constrained. And if that user is ever deleted, what we probably want to do here is just null on delete. So we need to make this nullable, so that if a user is deleted, we can keep the items, and we could just say anonymous user or something like that if there's no user attached. So a user can have many feeds in effect. You can have multiple personal sites which you want to pull feeds from, depending on what you're blogging about. Nice and clean, nice and simple. So let's go down to the model feed and let's have a look at filling this in. So we can pull this over here. So the fillable, we are going to have a UID as fillable. We're going to have a title, a link, a description, language, copyright, whether it's approved or not, and the user ID could be something that we mass assign. Then on the cast perspective, we have got approved, which is a boolean. And for now, that's probably about it. The other things that we could do further down the line is start to look at pulling in metadata for the site itself. So pulling in like the social image or anything like that, just by grabbing the headers. Relationships wise, we're going to have an owner, which is going to be a belongs to relation. So we can return this belongs to user class, and then that foreign key is going to be user ID. This is how I like to write my code. It's as declarative as I possibly can make it. You don't need to put these dot blocks, but I like to, because then if I need to add specific notes, I can do. So there is a factory. We're also going to need to add a user ID so that we can say user factory, and that's all we should need to do. There's our definition, and we are good. our factory is done, our migration is done, and our model is done. So the next step is we may as well start looking at how we're going to be building this out. So inside infrastructure, what I would do, I will create a new directory, and we're going to call this contracts. So we're going to want a value object contract. It's a class for now, but it's going to be an interface. So when we're building out our value objects, we know we're going to need a public function to array, which is going to return an array. That is what all of them must have. We are also going to have a value object factory contract. Well, I could probably just call that a factory contract if I'm really honest. Let's just put that as an interface and go for it. So then we can declare strict types, and for this we're going to have a public static function make, where we take in an array of attributes, and we're going to return something that looks or is part of a value object contract. Not too much, just Docker setup and starting to model out feed spend. Not a huge amount. So there's two contracts that we know we're going to need. So that in our domains, we can create a new domain called feeds. So now we can go, let's create a PHP class, and we're going to call a new directory, and we're going to call that factories. And we're going to create a feed factory. This is going to implement factory contract. Simplify that one quickly. For now that'll be fine, and then down here we're going to create another one, and we're going to create value objects, and for this we're going to create a feed value object. And this is going to implement the value object contract, which we can simplify. And then in our public function construct, these are our kind of the domain objects which we're going to pass around a lot. So we're going to have things like a public read-only string for the title. We're going to have a public read-only string for the link, public read-only string for the description. Let me go make sure that we're all going to look okay. So let's pull this over here. So description could be null. So this is a read-only null string that is going to default to null. Public read-only string for language. Public read-only null string for copyright. Approved doesn't need to be on there. But we will do. Public read-only boolean for approved, and that is going to default to false. And that's all we need. Then this is going to complain because that needs to be there. Optional parameters provided before required. There we go. Now we're good. No, I prefer the null string. It reads better, because if it ever extends, I can, you know, maybe not mixed, but maybe I want to, this could be an int, or, you know, to me it reads better. So here is our feed value object. And then when we end up returning this as an array, what we want to do is we want to return the title, the link, the language. Think of these a little bit like think of it like API resources. That's a standard template which you want to return from an API. And what these value objects are, these are standard templates that you want to use internally instead of an array. That's the way I like to think of them. We'll drop that description in there. We'll drop the copyright in there. And whether it's been approved or not. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We are looking good. Yeah, there's a value object. So here, what we want to do is we want to return a new feed value object. This feed value object will need a title. And we're going to want the string value coming from data get on the attributes for title. So a lot of this is going to be repetitive. So then let's just go description. We're going to go language. Whether it's approved. I'll fix that up in a second. The copyright. And the link. So first off, we need to sort those arguments, and that approved will be the Boolean value. Did it wrong. I always do something wrong. There's always something I do wrong. Then I can just delete, and delete. And we're good. And that is... Yeah, I completely forgot, Adrian. I haven't used it for a few days. Right, so there is our feed factory, our feed value object. All of the kind of app data and domain data is kind of handled there. So what we need to think about doing now is actions, you know, when we create them and testing that. So what we need to do is just make sure we've installed pest, and we're good. So now tests have got all of this going on. This unit test is a load of rubbish. This feature test and those auth are just going to get on my nerves. So cd PHPOnline make test. It's going to complain about parallels. No, it's not. Good. Let's just remove that. Delete anyway. Come down to our PHP unit, and we're just going to say cache results false. Cache results file. No, don't want a cache results file. There we go. So let's think about testing this. Domains. In here we're going to want some domain tests as well. So domains, and the first thing we want to be thinking about, yeah, I should really start using multi-select with my ID. I know, just laziness. Right, so domain feeds, we're going to want some actions. We know what these are going to look like. So domain directory feeds, and we're going to have a new PHP file called actions test. So it can create a new feed from a feed value object. So this is a feature test, so what I can do here is let's go to datasets. We're going to create a new PHP file called strings, dataset, strings. We don't need to yield these, but I like doing it just in case it gets bigger. So we can go string, random 12, and simplify that one. And we're just going to return 1, 2, 3, 4 of those. So now with this, I can say with strings, and for each one, we're going to pull that string in. Go away, cat. Yeah, I've tried to get up Copilot. It's just a bit, it gets in the way so much. So what we need, we want the value object. So we're going to go feed factory from the domain. We're going to make it. Simplify that one. And the attributes are going to be the title, string, the link, string, the description is going to be string, the copyright is going to be string, approved is going to be false. Simple. So now we can just quickly just make sure that that builds. Expect value object to be an instance of feed value object. So let's run our test. Okay, a dataset with a name strings does not exist. Let's go make sure it's all set up. There we go. Run our tests. And there we go. We can create a new feed from a feed value object. So we can create that value object there. That is fine. And next step is to go. Now we want to expect when we go feed query count to equal 0. So I can simplify that one. Make test. Okay, migrate first. Make test. And there we go. So now what we want to do is we want to say the action is going to be add new feed. We want to handle it, and the object we want to pass is our value object. And then after that, we expect this to be 1. Obviously, we are going to fail. Why don't people return type their closures? Yeah, why not? So what we need to do, we need to create this action now. So down in our actions here, we need to create a new class, add new feed. So we need this to have a follower contract. So we're going to create a action contract. This is going to be an interface. Let's do this, and we're going to have a public static function handle is going to accept a value object contract for the object, and it's going to return model for now. There we go. Yeah, I'm going to use lazily refresh database in my test case in a moment. So add new feed, we are going to implement the action contract, add that method stub. So what we want to do is we want to return the model feed, start the query builder. I want to create attributes object to array, and that's it. Nice and clean, nice and simple. So now when we go to that, we should be okay. Oh, we failed. UUID. Okay, so next part is in our models, we're going to add a new directory for concerns, and we're going to create a new class, and we're going to call this has UUID. This is going to be a trait. We declare strict types, and we're going to go public static function boot has UUID. Going to have a void return type, and then when we're static creating, we're going to start with a model, and what we're going to do with that model is we're going to say model UUID is using the illuminate string to string, and that is it. So on our feed we can add that. We also need to use soft deletes as well. So now if I make test, we're still failing, blah blah blah. So where are we failing? Let's go down to our tests and have a quick look. So we're going to have that, and we're also going to have lazily refresh database going on as well. There we go. And now we're good. Now we're doing running the migrations. What my IDE setting? All I've got is the PHP Proton theme from Brent from Sparsy. It's the only thing I've got added. So delete that. Don't want that. Nice and clean, nice and simple. That is working. That is being used. And what we need to do is just quickly run a make generate to generate the IDE helper file, and now we're good. So what's going to happen is, hey buddy, we will end up submitting a feed URL, and what we want to do is we want to grab items from that. So if I think about how that's going to work, it's going to come to some sort of endpoint. We're going to need to send it through like an action, build some stuff up and do stuff with it. So let me make sure my wife's not shouting for me or anything. No. So if we take an example URL like this one, what we want to do is we want to start looking to use Laminas feed. So composer require laminas feed, and we're good. What do you mean by that, cat? Right, okay. So we got our feed. What we're going to have is, let's go have a look at how they recommend using this. Go to the docs, basic usage. So using composer, we want that. Introduction, reader import something, catch an exception. Then we're going to start going through stuff to get it. Consuming RSS feeds. It requires a HTTP client to import available. Providing a client to the reader. Okay, so I might just need to do something like that. Laminas HTTP. I might just have to pull it in for this specific use case. So we're going to go composer require laminas HTTP. And there we go. So what we've got is we've got a reader, and we will need to have an action. For me, Kat, it's more about just kind of clean, consistent. You can look at either. Yeah, you are completely repeating what you're doing. You don't have to do it. I just, to me, that looks empty. I know it's got return types. I know it's got type hinting, but I'm just so used to seeing that it's a habit at the minute more than anything. I wouldn't say you should have it or you shouldn't have it. For me, it's a habit. So domain feed. What we are going to do is we are going to create another action, and we're going to call this one do we want an action or do we want something else? Do we want like a service? We kind of want a service, don't we? So if we come to our app, we're going to have services within here. And within that service, we are going to want a feeds service, and we're going to create a quick class, and we're going to call this feeds service or feed service, and there we go. And public function construct. When we start up that feed service, what we're going to want to do is have a read-only string for the URL. So we're going to say things like feed service, public function. We don't really want to import. We just want to kind of like say read RSS or feed discovery. Find feed links. Okay, so feed service discover. So what that is going to do is find feed links, return reader find feed links, where the URI is going to be this URL, and the return type will be a feed set. So there we go. Go to your settings and check enable auto import. Whereabouts is that one, Adrian? So is that in PHP? some settings. So enable auto import. Auto import. Enable auto import and file scope apply. Cool. Sometimes auto import goes wrong though. I'm just going to say it does go wrong. So there we go. So what we're going to do is we are going to just write a test for this. Should it be a unit test? Kind of should be. So let's create a unit test. I'm going to create an app folder in here. This is where we're going to test our services. Create a new PHP file, feed, service, test. It can build a new instance of the feed service. We need to make sure we are good. So we can expect new feed service URL. You know what, we'll go with strings because it doesn't matter right now. To be an instance of feed service class, and we're going to expect URL to equal string. So let's just run make test. Ooh. I keep doing that wrong. There we go. So we can build a new instance of that and we can run that and we're all good. But you know, those two things are working fine. So there's our feed service, and what we can do, we can say now that it can discover available feeds from a URL. So we can just say, I was going to say service is that. Grab that. Or actually what we want to do is we want to grab this. Grab this. And let's just do a quick expect service discover to be instance of feed set. And we're good. We're discovering. So what we'll do is we're just going to break out of that beforehand because you know that isn't anything useful test wise. I'm just going to do a quick dyn dump on that, and we'll see what it returns. So it's giving us it's got RSS and it's got no atom, so it'll have one or the other. Storage array, it should have at least one. So what we need to do is we need to basically see how we can get hold of that. So come over to discovery. For each one, what happens if we dyn dump on RSS. Let's just run that. Run it and see what happens. So we've got a URL. We've got a feed URL. So we can say count. We can expect count to be 1. You can just oh, that is pretty cool. Thanks for that. I know that I have a an RSS feed, so this works fine. So it can build a new instance of a service. We don't need that. It can discover available feeds from URL. Great. It can get the feed from the URL. So what we kind of want to do here is just build up that service, and then what we will do is that feed is going to be service discover RSS, and then we want to say expect our service fetch URL server. We kind of want feed there. We don't want too many calls inside each other, so we want that. Let's just die and dump on that. So this won't work for now, and that's fine. I want to see how we're going to go. Great. So let's add that fetch method. So public function fetch string URL, and let's return reader consuming RSS feed, import consuming atom feed. Just import again. Okay, so import where the URI is the URL passed. That import is going to return something. That's just too much. Okay. It returns a feed, something to do with the feed interface, which is from Laminas. Great. So now when we make test, we should get something. We got a feed. Extensions, got items, got lots of items that we can go through. And what we can do with that is we can start looking at, once we've got the service, we can just go and say, right, create feed, create the items, and away we go. One thing I completely forgot is that we kind of, well, that's a lot of information in there. That's a lot of data. Big old feed. And none of that. DOM document, and then we can start playing around with this. Okay, so what we will do now is we will say we're going to get a feed there, and we can get a feed from the URL, and what we can do is just make sure it's a feed interface class, make so that we can do more with it. And we're good. Cool. So the next thing we want to do is if we have a look at it, import feed contains however many items. So that's going to import as that's going to give us like a channel, so we could go get title, get author. So public function feed, that's going to accept that feed interface as a feed, return feed, I probably could do, and I'll probably build up to that, Adrian, but right now I'm playing with what I can do, trying to understand what I can do. So we're going to want something here. So that the title is going to be feed get title. Our link is going to be feed get link, or realistically we want to get feed link, not the URL link. The description is going to be feed get description. Let's test the language as well. We're going to want the language. Feed get language. And the copyright is going to be feed get copyright. Let's test that, and that is going to return a feed value object. There we go. No, nothing at all, if I'm honest. It's all just stuff I'm coming up with in my head. I'll probably look to open source how I'm going through it pretty soon. So you can get the feed from the URL to be an instance of feed interface. So then we can do something like it can get the feed and turn it into a value object, because the first instance is going to be to get the feed specifics and then start that importing later. So first things first, we'll get our service. Well, our feed is going to be a new feed where we're going to discover and get the RSS feed. So the next step is we're going to expect something to be an instance of feed value object. And that thing that we're going to want is going to be okay, I might need that service. Do that for now. So we're going to expect the service feed there we go. go. Service fetch URL. I can drop that. There we go. I might add a helper function to help me get that quicker. And there we go. So what we can do is something like feed service is public function get RSS feed, and that's going to return a feed value object. We're going to accept a URL to start with, and what that is going to do is return this fetch the URL. It's going to be this discover RSS, and what we're going to discover there we go. Just to shorten it a little bit. So that should do the same thing, and we don't actually need to pass anything in, and we are good. So now for our feed service test, we can say it can shortcut to get the RSS feed straight away. And I'll probably do the same with an Atom one as well. Feed fetch discover. What did I do? Feed fetch discover. Yeah. So get RSS feed. Done. Make test. And there we go, we're good. That feed service is working for how I need it right now. It can be refactored and changed and updated later on, but for now the basics are working. So what I can do there is we can get a feed, we can get that value object from a service, so we can just say, right, great, let's grab that, commit the action, and away we go. That's going to return what we need it to do. So importing feeds is nice and easy. Next thing we need to think about is the feed items. So let's go PHP artisan make a model feed item. So a shared setup. Yeah, you can do like a before each. So if I was to yeah, so new feed service, 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 but with a string. What I could do is a for each. And what I can do is I can say this service equals new feed service, where the URL is this, and then instead of that I can say this service, and instead of that I can say this service, this service discover, this service fetch, this service, this service, this service, and this service. There we go. Ooh, okay. Failed asserting that the two strings are equal. Of course it will, because that is no longer required. So I can drop that with. Drop that because it's not useful. Run it again. And there we go. A little bit faster, a little bit better. So, feed items. We need to think about feed items next. So, migrations, feed items. Add some soft deletes on there. Foreign ID for the feed ID. Index constrained cascade on delete. The feed item is going to have again a UUID. So let's worry about how that feed looks for a feed item. So we're going to have a title, a link, a description, and content. I probably will pull in the content for now. So we're going to have a title. Each thing should have a link. Table, text, description. I think that's pretty much character limited. Then we're going to go for medium text for content. So let's just ignore that's content encoded. We've got a GUID. We've got an author. So we can say like table string for the author. What does the index do in the context of foreign ID call? It just indexes a feed ID against that feed item. That's all it does. Link and GUID are pretty much the same most of the time. So what I'm going to do then is add in a table timestamp published at as well. So got a feed ID. What we're also going to want to make sure we add is a table boolean. We're going to default this one to true, and we're going to say that is this approved to go on the site, basically. So the idea here is that you add your you add your RSS link. I take that RSS link. I get your feed. I add your feed. Once it's approved, I can start getting your feed items. Once I'm getting your feed items, you can approve whether or not something is going to be displayed. Because you might have an article you might not want to add onto PHPOnline, so you can just unapprove that one and it just won't happen. So there we go. Nice and clean. Let's go back to our models, our feed item. So this one has UUID and use soft deletes. So from a fillable perspective, we will have a UUID, a title, a link, a description, some content, the author, whether it's been approved or not, the feed, and when it was published. So what we need to cast is approved as a boolean, and we need to cast published at as a timestamp. That should be everything. I mean, the content could be marked down. I'm not too sure how I'm going to do that just yet. I'll play around with that. I'm going to play around with that later on once I start building the UI and how it passes and get a couple of examples. So first off, we need a relationship. So public function feed belongs to, and we know that the feed items belongs to the feed itself, and that the foreign key is the feed ID. Yep, that's definitely me. Missed the letter. I'll just rewrite the whole thing because it's quicker. Right, okay, so I can now go to my feed class and I can come down and I can say public function items have many, and I can say that return this have many related is feed item class, and that my foreign key is going to be feed ID when I'm looking at it from the other side. And there we go. Don't need any helper methods just yet. And then my feed item, no helper methods just yet either. And that is those two done. Although something is complaining somewhere. Has UID. Done. Next, I need to look at the factories for the feed item. So, we're going to have a title. This faker sentence. We're going to have 6 words for now. The link is going to be this faker. It's going to create a URL. Description. This faker. Going to do 1 paragraph, variable sentences, content, this faker, I don't know if I want random HTML, I probably just want, like, for now, paragraphs. I'm going to do 4 paragraphs. Author, this faker, name, approved, this faker, boolean, feed ID is going to be feed factory, published at is going to be carbon pass, where the time is going to be this faker time. I'll just leave it at that. So there's factory, there's all of that, so I can just quickly do a quick make migrate, make sure that's up there. And then we can come back down to our domain. We're looking good on time. So in our factories, we want a feed item factory. And that is going to implement the factory contract. Simplify that. and we are going to return a new feed item value object, which I will go create now. Implement the value object contract. Simplify that one. And now we are good to just get on with this. Public function construct. So we're going to have a read-only string for the title, read-only string for the link, a string for the description, a string for the content, a string for the author, read-only Boolean value for the approved. That is going to default to true. Now we're going to have a public read-only carbon instance for the published at feed ID. Probably not something I want to do on the feed item value object. Not right now. We might have to come back to that. So then when we come to casting it to an array, it will be a simple case of returning that array with title, this title, the link, this link, description, this description, the content is this content, author is this author, make sure no typos. Published at is published at, and the approved is this approved. Nice and clean, nice and simple on what we do. We just we work with that. So there is that part. So we can say import title with string value, data get on attributes for something. Link. The description. Content. The author. Approved, published at, carbon pass, the time is give a string value of update for now. Sort the arguments, and we are looking good. That is looking nice. The next step is going to be evening. Mark, how are you doing, buddy? Got feed item, feed items, add new feed. Test wise in our features, unit, feed actions, domain. We're going to refactor and rename that to be feed actions. And now we're going to go feed item, actions, test, declare some strict types. And what we want to do is make sure that we can pass it a feed and get items from it. So services is what we also need to look at, don't we? So we're going to have, yeah, I'm really good, thank you, buddy. Really, really good. Return value is expected to be feed value object. Okay. Return that instead. And then we should be good. Feed value object. Let's make sure these are still good. Yeah, really good, thanks Mark, really good. Keeping myself busy as possible. Sure the wife is alive and okay. Apparently she could hear the wife singing. Great. Okay, so we know we can get feed. We know we can do lots of different stuff. Next step is going to be we need to pass a feed. So to pass a feed, this is where we're going to be looking at more on the interaction side, because we're, you know, from a back-end interaction perspective, the way it's going to work is you submit your feed, we submit URL, we check if it's got a feed available. Yeah, cool, right, we'll add it. We add your feed. Once it's approved, we can then schedule a job to run and get feed items. So what that needs to do is we need a feed in place, and then we're going to need a dispatchable job. But do we want to do anything else? Like, do we want to, you know, get some thoughts from people watching? Should we event source this? Should we event source when a feed's added or when a feed's approved? Just like my typical approach, but I'm keen to hear what other people think. I'm going to delete that for now. Definitely interested to see what people think, because I've not built any of the UI or anything at all other than a couple of models, some kind of domain objects which we're going to be using. That's about it. So from a service perspective, we can play with feed, get RSS feed. Then when we've got the RSS feed, what we can do is probably something like pass or something, you know. We can have a public function pass or something. What that could do, so it should already have the URI for the feed. And what we want that to do is we want to get that feed and pass that feed itself with feed items. So we'll have like pass items. So what we need to do is items equals this. Why do we need to fetch with a URL when we've got the URL already? Oh, the RSS URL. Of course. So let's say fetch. So I'm going to get that URL in there because that's going to be that feed URL. I'm going to fetch the feed. That's going to give us the feedback. So at this point, if we dump on that feed, so let's come back to this feed service test and we can work on that. Unit test for the feed service, and down here we're just going to expect it can pass an RSS feed. Pass items, URL, service discover. Let's see what happens. See what it gives me. Bang. It's giving me part of it. So if we go back to consuming, getting properties, I should be able to say something like get feed link, get generator, next, rewind, valid. I suppose it's iterable, is it? Okay, let's try this. So for each feed as item, let's just dump out on that first item and let's see what it gives us. We have got a lot of mess. Let's go back. Basic usage. Read from there. Feed as entry. We can say like what's fetch returning? Feed interface. That's going to be the same as reader import. Yep. Import pathways to namespace, evaluate. It's really weird because it's not quite giving me what I'd expect. Let's see what it actually is, what it's giving us. It's an object. Right, so if we just var dump, what's it gonna do? Probably gonna completely die. I'm just trying to find out what it is. What is it actually giving me? This is where going to the web would help. So we've got an item. It's going to give us a feed interface. Get authors, get categories, count, description, title. Because it's iterable, it should now allow me to use it. So in theory, this object cheers, Adrian. I keep forgetting I'm on PHP 8.1. Read entry RSS. So we are looking at RSS. So what we're going to have is we should be able to, like, say, get author. Null. Get authors. Still null. Okay. Get date created, date modified, get description, get enclosure, get ID, get link. We'll try get link. Make test, let's see. We got it. Cool. So what I could probably do is do var should that help with auto completion? Yeah. Get title. Here we go. So now we can actually work with it. Cool. Excellente. So for each one is items is a new collection for now, and then for each one we're going to say items add, and the item we want to add is going to be feed item demo feed make. And the attributes we want to pass through is going to be a title. Drop this over here so we can play around with it. For link, item get link, description, item get description, content, item get content, author is item get author, and the pub date is going to be item get date created. That's going to pass it for me, and approved is just going to be false. Going to default that one. So we're going to rush over all of those, do all of that, and then we're just going to return items. So we're going to return a collection. So service test. Expect this to be instance of collection class. Ooh, it can object of date time cannot be converted to string. Feed item factory line 27. Okay, so I probably don't want to do this string val on that specific part. Let's try again. Try it again. And now we're good. So it can pass an RSS feed. So what we want to do, is there anything we can do with that? Pass items. We can have like a Sambin. No, not right now. Yeah, I mean, I get what you mean, Adrian. A lot of this I could map, but right now I'm playing around. A lot of this will be refactored. A lot of this will be tested and done slightly differently. So we shall see. Next up is how are we doing for time? We've got about 10 minutes left, so we know we can pass a feed. We know we can get a feed. What we want is we want to be able to give a we need to kind of work with that feed, right? So add new feed, PHP class, add new feed item, implement the action contract. Yeah, I'll definitely be looking to do that later. While I'm working with a feed, I'm working with a local feed, well, not my personal feed, so I can play around and just work with it the way I need to. I will eventually turn that into a mock. So we want to return a feed item. I'm going to start a query. I want to create based on attributes object to array. So that's most likely to change because this feed item it's not going to have anything in it. So like this in theory should have feed ID, but I can't right now. So things need tweaking, things need changing. I need to start building the interaction with some of this logic that I'm building so I can fine tune. But what I would do is to start with feed service test, no, feature test, we'll create a new file and we're going to call this feed item actions test. declare some strict types, and we are going to say it can create a new feed item from, how do I do this? From a feed item value object. And this is where string is going to be useful. Strings. So our value object is going to be a, let's just say new feed item value object, and we want the title to be string, the link to be string, now description to be string, author to be string, content to be string, and the approved to be false. And now we can just quickly sort those. That's good. So we've got a value object. We'll just quickly make sure that worked. What did we do on the last one? Cool. So when we do this, we're going to expect feed item query count to equal 0. And then we're going to add the add new feed item. We're going to handle it, and the object we want to pass through is the value object, and we want to then expect we've got 1. I'm expecting a database error, so before anyone says I expect it, it should be happening, it should come, and there we go. So what we need is, in this factory, we kind of need to pass it through, or in the action itself, or somewhere. But for now, I'm just gonna get an int value of data get on attributes, and the key is going to be feed underscore ID. So up here we're going to add in a read only integer for feed ID, which means I need to replace that and that feed ID is this feed ID. Feed value object is now looking good. Feed factory, we need to sort those arguments. Factory is fine. That is now fine. Feed item value object. Wrong one. Feed ID, got that. Wrong bloody one. item. Feed item value object. Or feed factory, we want the feed item factory. Sort the arguments, and now we're good. So now if we make test, probably fail for a different reason. Argument feed ID not passed. Feed ID. So what we'll do is feed equals feed factory create. Let's just sort those arguments out. Make test. And now we're good. So, what do I need? That's working. That action's working. All of that's working. As I expected. As I'd hoped. We've got a few contracts in there which we will bind to. Testing out the feeds and service. I think we're in a good place to start looking at Livewire next time, which is brilliant. It's what I wanted. It's what I wanted out of the day. Let's quickly analyze and see what our static analysis is going like. String null given. Feed service. Line 70. That is true. That is true. I will refactor that next time. Ah, dear. Has UID? Yeah, it's fine. I expected that, and we're good. Okay, cool. So, make generate quickly. And we're good. Perfect. Right, well that is tonight's stream done. We managed to look at feed, build a feed model, do the domain aspect so we can pass around objects that make sense in our context. We can pass a feed and we can get a collection of feed items back. Again, domain objects, which is going to be super important. And our next step is to start, let's add some UI. Let's build some interaction and see how that's working on the front end, because that's going to really shine a light on how our logic's working. All of these tests and feature tests are great for how it's working in my head, but if that's going to cause issues on how I'm interacting with it from the front end, then the logic wasn't in the right order in my head. So we need to play around with that a little bit and see how it's going to work. As usual, link in the description below for Discord. Feel free to join and have a chat, discuss the project with me. It'd be great to get some feedback and get some people interested in telling me what they'd like to see, giving me feedback on how it's going, or even just wanting to join. Other than that, like, comment, subscribe for more content. I will be doing another PHP Online stream on Thursday. And other than that, thank you very much for joining in. Really happy to have you with me. I'm going to go spend some time with my wife, so I bid you adieu, and